All right, so welcome to Model Monday. As you can see, we are trying new things as we like to do here. So normally I record these while I'm doing the Fusion 360 class at the Makerspace that I teach the class at. But I always do prep on Sunday before, so I'm going to try doing a recording of my prep before the class, and then I don't have to have you guys have me leave the camera and walk around and answer questions to people in class. So, gonna give this a whirl and see if we like the change up here. Leave a comment below if you do like this change in video style. So, without further ado, let's jump into Fusion. All right, so today's project is a CNC project, and we are going to be creating a cigar box for like a couple of cigars to take with you on the road. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new sketch here. We're going to create that sketch. I'm going to create it between my X and my Y axis here, just because that'll keep our Z oriented in the right direction when we go ahead and move this over to the machining workspace. And on this sketch, I'm going to create a center rectangle here. So I've created a new sketch. We'll click on Create Rectangle, Center Rectangle. If you've watched previous classes, you know that I like to have some part of my sketch connected to my origin. So, in that spirit, we're going to have some part of our sketch connected to our origin. And you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to do something weird. I'm going to give it a dimension in one direction, but I'm actually going to delete this dimension in the other direction here. So it's constrained in one axis, but not constrained in another for now. That's like the basic size of our cigar box here, our cigar carrier. I'm going to create a rectangle here, another 2-point. Actually, let's make this another center rectangle. And I'm going to make this center rectangle vaguely in my cigar area here. I'm going to make it 6 inches in length. And then our width here, I pulled up a handy dandy cigar size calculator, or not calculator, image. An image with different cigar sizes on it. And I happen to know that the diameter of the fattest cigar on there was just under 21 millimeters. So we're going to do one of those like metric and imperial drawings at the same time here. Now I want to locate this this cigar cutout in my box here. So I'd like to have the center of this located directly over the center of my box. And I'm going to do that with a constraint. So in my constraints menu, I'm going to go ahead and choose the horizontal vertical constraint. And I have nothing selected when I'm choosing my constraint. If I had something selected, and then I would come up to constraints and horizontal vertical or whatever else I want to pick from here, it would think that I want to do this constraint to the item that I have selected. So I'm going to click off into no man's land here, so I have nothing selected. And now I can say horizontal vertical, choose my tool first, and then I choose what I want to use that tool on. And in our case, it's going to be these 2 points right here. And now I'm going to add a dimension because we've constrained it horizontally, but we haven't constrained it vertically. I want to constrain it vertically too here. So from my create menu, I'm going to go ahead and choose the sketch dimension option. I'm going to pick the center point of my circle or of my box, my cigar box, and then the edge of that, what's going to be the cigar holder. And I'm going to make this 1/8 of an inch. That seems perfectly fine. All right, now I'm going to grab my line tool. And I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw from the midpoint of this cigar diameter I've got over to the midpoint of the other end here. And what that's doing, you can see I got the little blue triangle that's popping up there. So that little blue triangle is a midpoint constraint. In fact, I've got two constraints popping up right now. I've got a midpoint constraint popping up, and the second one is I've got a right angle constraint. So it's letting me know that, it's actually a perpendicular constraint is what they call it, but it's letting me know that that line is perpendicular and at the midpoint of this other line here. All right. So now I've got my box almost set here. We're going to add, I've got these funky hinges. These little funky hinges here are just like little circles, or little 8mm circles here, or that we're going to draw into our box. So from my create menu, I'm going to go ahead and grab the circle tool. Center diameter circle will be just fine. I'm going to place it like here-ish. And again, these are 8mm, I want to say. But we will probably need, it's actually 8.3mm. So I'm going to make it 8.25 here to start off with. And then when we actually go to cut these on the CNC machine, we can always run that toolpath again if I find they're not fitting, and kind of snug it up a little bit, kind of sneak up on a nice tight fit on that. So 8.25mm on this guy. I'm gonna specify the spacing between the edge of my cylinder and this line at the end here. So what I'm gonna do in order to do that is I'm gonna grab my line tool. I'm gonna draw a line straight up from the center of my circle to the edge of my circle. And you can see that this line is partially constrained. It's got that horizontal vertical constraint that's popping up on it. And now I can draw another line, grab my line tool, from the end point of that line to the edge of my circle, and you can see another constraint popping up. That's my right angle constraint. Now I can add a dimension to this line by hitting the D key, or from the create menu you can choose the sketch dimension option again. And this is going to be 2mm. Again, we're mixing and matching our dimensions here, our imperial and metric dimensions, just because some of the parts I have are metric. So it's just nature of the beast. I'm going to make these construction lines just by clicking on the line and hitting the X key, or I can click on the line and from my sketch palette. Oh, you can't see that window. Interesting. Because I'm recording oh, can you see that window? Oh, you know what? Since we're doing new things here, I didn't realize that I'm recording on a different size screen than I normally record on. So I have to change it in my editor. I didn't even realize that. Hopefully this hasn't been super confusing up until this point, because I had to change the size of my screen in my recorder. All right, so let's keep going and hope that everything makes sense. I'm going to hit the construction line type here in my sketch palette. Now, the last thing we need to do here is we need to define a couple of distances. So for my create menu, I'm going to go ahead and pick the sketch dimension option. I'm going to dimension this line from the center of my circle. Let's just make it 1 inch. And then lastly, let's just dimension the edge of our cigar box from over here. And let's just make this 0.5 inches. That seems fine. And now you'll notice our sketch is fully constrained here. We just need one more circle over here. Over here, we're going to make another center diameter circle. How big are my magnets? I've got a pile of magnets because we're going to use magnets to keep our box closed. And my magnets here are 10 millimeters. So we got a little 10. Actually, you know what? I bet I have a smaller magnet. Let's use a smaller magnet. Let's try using these guys. And I bet these are actually imperial. Yeah, these are 1/4 inch magnets. Actually, they're a little bigger than a 1/4. What size are you? 6.75 or 6.75 millimeters. And then we'll dimension it from the edge here. Let's just make it 1/4 inch. And then I'll also dimension it from the side. And we'll make it 1 inch. All right, cool. So I'm going to clean up my dimensions a little bit. Drag these off to the side a little bit more. This looks a little weird because it's metric and imperial, but it's getting the job done just fine, I think. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say finish sketch. Got a sketch we can name, so I'm just going to rename that to cigar box. Cool. Now, from my create menu, I can do a couple of different extrusions. So I'm going to click on extrude. I'm going to extrude everything. And I'm going to use my navigation cube in that top right-hand corner to view this a little bit more three-dimensionally. And I'm going to make it negative 0.75 inches. All right. Negative 3/4 inch. And I'm doing negative because I want to go down because I want my features to be on the top of this. It'll just help me orient myself later, save me a few steps later on if I orient things correctly now. So new body, negative 3/4 inch. Okay. I'm going to grab my extrude tool again here. I'm going to pick this is the opening for our hinge. And our hinge is going to go 9 millimeters deep. So negative 9 millimeters. And that's going to be a cut. And then I'm going to say okay. Our magnet is 1.7 millimeters. So I'm going to grab my extrude tool again. Negative 1.7 millimeters. That's going to go down there. Now, because I've oriented my box in the middle of my drawing world, I get some kind of free midplanes here, and I'm going to take advantage of those. So from my create menu, I'm going to grab the mirror tool. We can make a mirror of a feature. A feature is anything that happens down here in the timeline at the bottom. So our feature timeline is this little taskbar down at the very bottom of the screen here. And in theory, any of these features we can make a pattern of or a mirror of. So I'm going to change our object type to a feature. The objects or the features that I'm going to mirror are the last two extrusions that I did. So if I pick on them here in my drawing view, I pick those two features. And now the mirror plane is going to be this plane between my Z and my Y axis. And you can see the ghosted images of what it's giving me here. And if I just say okely dokely, there you go. Now I've got my mirrored object. Two more steps, or a couple more steps before we jump into CAM. So from our create menu, I'm going to go ahead and grab the revolve option. I'm going to pick either one of the sides of my little cigar cutout here. And then the axis that I'm going to revolve around is going to be the middle of that. I'm going to say OK, and it defaulted to cut. And again, cutting is definitely what I'd want to do here. So it's defaulted to cut there. And then one more time, I'm going to choose that mirror option. The feature I'm going to choose to mirror is that revolve. And the mirror plane is going to be the plane that kind of divides my box in half. Again, because I chose to draw a center rectangle to make my box around. Kind of gives me those free mid-planes to use later. And that looks pretty good. I think we're just going to do a couple of simple fillets. So I'm going to grab my fillet tool. I'm going to fillet these corners like a 1/4 of an inch fillet. Just give it a little soft bend. And then I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to click the little plus button. I'm also going to fillet this top edge, or this whole face. Again, 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to say, okay. All right, cool. So this is our cigar box here. So we've got a cigar box. Cool. I'm going to reward myself with a little piece of candy. All right. So I'm going to hide my sketch. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into CAM here. So from my workspaces choices up here, I'm going to switch to manufacture. All right, so the first thing we need to do when we are manufacturing a thing, making some toolpaths for it, is we need to generate a setup. So in our setup window, we can choose to make a new setup here. Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. All right, just took a minute. All right, so orientation is correct here. So it is correct because I oriented it correctly right off the bat. But sometimes you need to come in here and say, hey, I want to orient my model correctly. So instead of the model orientation, we want to choose the orientation that we want to put it in. So if you do need to do that, you could choose this Z-axis XY plane there. And then I'm going to choose the face that my Z-axis is on. And then I'm going to choose the axis that my X-axis is on there. Now, I'm going to choose my machine here. I've already got my machine set up. It's open the window over my other window here. It's my Carvera 3-axis. I've got my Carvera Air behind me over here, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that as my machine. And I'm also going to, here, if I click on the little origin here, and I put it over in the bottom left-hand corner, I like to orient my origin so so my X and my Y are pointing into my stock there. And speaking of stock, I'm going to change the size of my stock here. So the default, if we choose the little stock tab here in our setup window, the default mode here is, can I expand you? Sure can, is to set up a relative size box. And I think that is a terrible default. I guess, I don't know what else you'd choose. It'd be hard to choose a fixed size box. And no, so maybe that is, but you should always change this. The moral of the story is you should always change this to a fixed size box, and then you should take a measuring device and measure your stock. So my stock is 8 inches by 3.5 inches. So 8 by 3.5. And my Z height is not 1 inch. It's actually a little bit less than an inch. I might leave it at an inch. Yeah, it's 0.955. So 50 thousandths off. I'm gonna leave it at an inch. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at an inch. And I'm gonna rotate my view here so you can see where it's locating this. So centered left and right is a good thing, but I want it to be right up at the top of my Z height. So I'm gonna change this to, I'm gonna try this one. Offset 0. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that worked. Let me just go back to edit that. So that is our setup here for our Z-axis. You can see our model is oriented right at the top of this. I'm choosing to do it this way because, so I've got some extra stock here at the backside because I'm thinking about trying to do a 3D carving on the back of this, but that'll be a project for another day. So we've got our stock set up. I'm going to say okay. Now we have got to make our tool paths. So I'm going to start with boring out our hinges and our magnet holes. So from the 2D menu, I'm going to choose the bore option. I'm going to select my tool. And again, I've got my tools that I downloaded from the Carvera website because I'm using my Carvera mill here, so I might as well use the tools that I came along with it. Use that 3.175 millimeter, 25 millimeter end mill there. Our coolant is going to be disabled, hardwood plastic, and then my cutting feed rate is actually going to be, oh, you know what? We want to change our units here. So up here in the manufacturer browser, let's say, I'm going to hover over units, and then I get the little icon that pops up to change the active units because we want to be in millimeters here. So I probably should change that to my default, but I'm not going to right now. So now if I go to 2D and I go to bore and I select my 3.175 millimeter end mill, there we go. Now we've got cutting feed rates that are appropriate here. So I'm just pulling my feeds and speeds from the Carvera wiki. So a plunge of like 200 and a cutting feed rate of 500 is what they recommend for hardwoods and 10,000 RPM. And then the geometry are going to be our bores here. I'm just going to go ahead and pick all of them. and then say OK. Cool. So there's our first tool path. Let's make our next one. The next one is going to be an adaptive clearing. So in the 3D toolpaths area, I'm going to choose this adaptive clearing option. It's remembering our feeds and speeds from last time. It's remembering our tool from last time. So we just need to choose the geometry. Or I'm sorry, we have to say, hey, we want to choose the machining boundary. And the machining boundary is going to be a selection. And that selection is going to be that edge and that edge. I'm going to choose the passes here. I'm going to make the maximum roughing step down 1 millimeter. And I'm going to make the maximum fine step down also 1 millimeter. I actually don't want it to do fine step downs. It just takes more time. And I'm going to do a finishing pass on this. So, yeah, I'm going to set them both to 1. And then I'm going to say OK. And let's have it generate that path. It's going to take a minute, so it's kind of thinking over here. And you can see it start to generate it. There we go. And if I wanted to, I can zoom in. All those yellow operations are retracts, where it's retracting. I think I can actually turn off the visibility on my model here too. Yeah. So if I turn off the visibility on my model, you can see the step downs that it's making there. Going 1 millimeter down and then doing it again. All right, so I'm going to turn my cigar box back on. I'm actually going to do one more operation here. Well, I'm going to do 2 more operations. One of them is going to be to cut the exterior line out. And the other one is going to be a finishing tool pass for the inside of this cigar thing. Normally, in like standard order of operations, you would do the finishing pass on your in the inside of your cigar, and then you would cut out the outside of your shape. I'm going to do it opposite of that. My Carvera doesn't have a tool changer, and Fusion won't output a multiple tool path or multiple tool path for the Carvera Air. It gives you an error. So what you have to do is you export them separately. So I'm going to get all the operations done that I can with this one tool before I switch to the other tool that I'm going to use. So from my 2D window, I'm going to choose to make a contour here. And I'm actually going to choose this ring down here. So my tool path, I'm not going to have it go down all the way. So it's not going to fully cut out my shape here. It's just going to give me the boundaries of my shape that I can later cut out with a router on a router table, just with like a flush cut bit. So it'll give me something for the bearing to rest against. So when I'm cutting the rest of this out with a flush cutter, it'll be all good. All right, so it's got my tool selected. It's got my feeds and speeds already selected here. I've selected my geometry. I just need to give it it's got to go multiple depths here. And my maximum roughing step down, again, is going to be that 1 millimeter. And then I'm going to change my heights. So in my heights tab, can I expand this window too? Look at that. In my heights tab, if I look at this a little bit more 3-dimensionally here, the bottom height is going to be set to the selected contours, and that's the selection that we chose as in the geometry tab. But I'm actually going to offset that. I'm actually going to make our bottom height from the stock top. And I'm just going to go down 8 millimeters. Do I go down negative 8 millimeters? Yeah. So you can see it's moving that bottom, this blue line, as I change this. Like if I make this 6, you'll see that moves. I'm going to go back to 8. 8 will be plenty deep. Actually, 6 would probably be plenty deep for me to rest a bearing on, so I can cut the rest of this out. And I don't want to cut any more of that contour than I need to on the machine, because it's just going to be 10 times faster to finish it up on a router. All right, so with those heights set, I'm going to say OK. You can see it generated those tool paths. Now I can make the last tool path, which is going to be a parallel. That's the name of this thing, parallel tool path. In the 3D section, we're going to choose parallel. Again, here I think I have to give it, I'm going to change my tool. Example tools. We're going to do the ball end mill. It's not a 1/4 inch. Where is... Well, I've got an 1/8 of an inch ball end mill that I'm going to be using for that finishing pass. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to change my cutting feed rate again. I'm actually going to go a little bit slower with the ball end mill than I did with the flat end mill. So I'll go down to 400, and then the geometry, we are going to make a selection here again for the machining boundaries, and it's going to be those 2 bits, the same bits we chose, the same outlines we chose for our adaptive clearing. We're going to go over to passes here, and our step over. Yeah, 0.2 millimeters sounds pretty good. We don't have to do multiple depths here because this is a finishing pass. We've already got most of the material cleared out there. And I wonder if there's a way for me to select the axis. Well, let's hit OK here and see. Oh, I forgot to change this to disabled. All right, and now I can say OK. All right, cool. That actually looks pretty good. It even made the tool paths in the orientation that I would prefer. So if I keep the tool paths going in the x-axis, it'll be a lot less travel than it would be going in the y-axis. So it might be a little faster. All right, so now if I click on my setup, let's change the name of this to box. This is going to be the inside of my cigar box. If I highlight that and then I come up to my actions menu, I can actually say, hey, let's simulate this. Let's see what it's going to look like. So I've got a simulate window here. Let's again make this a little bigger. But my statistics, I see this is a 4-hour machine time here. So it's quite a long tool path. And I can push the play button at the bottom and you can see it go. Down here at the bottom, there's like a timeline, I'm going to say. It's all green right now. If you see little red bits in that timeline at the very bottom, that's got the little playhead moving around, then there's a problem. It's like your tool is crashing into something. It's telling you that there's issues. So That looks pretty good. I'm not going to worry about these little kibbles and bits that my bore has left on this 8.25 millimeter hole. I think those things are going to end up breaking off in the machining process. I'm not going to have to worry about them. But you can see a good simulation of what toolpath is going to look like here. You can see it did not cut all the way through on my contour, which is indeed what I told it to do. And now I can exit the simulation. From my actions menu up here, I can choose to now post-process. It's important to have your setup selected when you choose post-process. If you just have one of the toolpaths selected, it will only post-process the thing that you have selected. So I want to post-process almost all of it. I'll show you that in the next step here. So if I click post-process, it's going to open that in a different window again. You can see it's already got my machine chosen. It's got my post-processor, which is my Makerspace Carvera chosen. I can name this toolpath. It is my cigar box inside. And it's the flat mill parts. I can leave myself a comment. It's and the comments I like to leave here is what tool I'm using. All right. I can't output all of these operations. Again, because my Carvera Air doesn't have a tool changer, and Fusion will throw me an error if I have an operation, if I've got a toolpath with multiple tools. So I'm going to switch over from my settings to my operations window here, tab, and I'm just going to uncheck the parallel. So that parallel is my finishing pass. So if I just uncheck it, it won't output those. And now I can say post. And it will save all of that stuff and see code successfully posted. I'm going to do that again. Actions, post process. My computer's being a little slow because I'm recording here. This is my cigar box inside finishing, and it's my 1.125-inch ball mill. All right, my operations, I'm going to check parallel. I'm going to uncheck the operations that are done with my flat mill, and then it's only going to export those passes there. And then I'm going to say post again. It's going to save that to my desktop. All right. Now, let's turn this bad boy on. Here's an advantage of doing this at home. Because you can see a machine run. We're going to try that, huh? All right. Carvera's firing up. Let's open up the Makerspace controller, the Carvera controller. And again, it's going to open up in a different window. I'm going to connect to it. I always have to enter my IP address manually. I don't know why. It never seems to find it. But there we go, connecting just fine. Now I'm going to upload a file. So I'm going to click on this little file button here. I like to delete the files that I'm done using so I don't kind of clutter up this file storage that it's got over here. And I was making folders for things, but I found I can't delete the folders. I don't know it won't let me delete the folder. I click delete and it says error. So I stopped making folders here because it won't let me delete them. So I'm just uploading the files right into that general area. And again here, this is kind of a sticking point if you got a Carvera Air here. You want to click upload. You don't want to click open. I don't know why this is an option. You don't want to open the G-code. You want to upload the G-code. And later, you don't even want to open it. You want to select it. So it's kind of a weird wording they've got going on here, but we're rolling with it. It's a great machine. I'm super happy with it. So it's going to upload that. We're going to upload the finishing pass one as well here. So I'm just going to click on it, and I'm going to say upload. That uploaded real quick. Now I want to say close. Now I'm back in the remote folder here on whatever the SD card is in that machine. And I'm going to choose the Carvera cigar box inside flat mill. Select. Down at the bottom, I want to select it. And it is going to load. There we go, and there are my pretty toolpaths there right before me. Now, if I'm ready to push go on this, I can push go. I have got my stock all loaded up here already. It is mounted in place. I'm going to Z-probe it. I'm going to scan the margin just because I can, because I think that's cool. Let's just go ahead and say run. All right, so here, tell you what, let's do this. Let's switch here. So we're going to switch our bits to the probe. And then once I've switched to my probe, I'm going to say confirm. It's going to go ahead and do the probe in here. So it's going to check the height of the probe. It's going to go over and touch it's going to scan the margin first. So I can indeed see that my clamps are not in the way. You don't want to machine into these clamps if you don't need to. So try to save your clamps. Yeah, and we're going to be just fine there. You see I didn't vacuum so well for my last operation. All right, now it's going to touch off the probe. Now it's going to prompt me to put in my first tool, or my only tool, for this particular program. I'm going to close the door. What I'm probably going to do here is I'm going to push go. I'm going to let you see it make some chips here, and then I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to pick the recording back up as it's finishing and kind of show you the end result. If that's, or maybe when I do the tool change and run the other program. Yeah, we'll see. All right, so I'm going to click confirm here. It's going to touch off that tool. So it's going to know its length. And then it's going to go and start making chips. At which point I'm going to turn my vacuum on. I'm going to stop the recording. And, oh, actually, it's pointless to turn the thing in real quick here. All right, cool. Don't do that. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to turn on my vacuum, and then we'll pick back up when we're further in here. But it's a little champion machine. Super happy with it. You can kind of hear its volume level. The vacuum is probably louder than the machine is. So it's probably about as loud as my Creality K1. So if anybody's thinking about having this like indoors, I'm in my apartment right now, and I'm speaking at a normal volume. Like, I'm going to watch TV while this is cutting. So that's where I'm at. All right, we'll see you back when this is finished. All right, so I'm about, oh, here, I can show you. You can see here, I'm a little over 1 hour into this machining process here. And here, just so for a noise check, again, this is what it sounds like when it's running. My vacuum is currently not running, but I've just been coming over and turning the vacuum on for a couple of seconds every once in a while. So here's what it sounds like with the vacuum on. All right, we got 2 hours, 45 minutes left, so see you in a little bit. All right, so here we are like 4 hours later, and it is done. For sound reference, because that's been a thing we've been talking about, my 3D printer is currently going, so you can kind of hear that it's really not a whole lot louder than my K1 Max is. So if you're on the fence because of noise, like I said, the vacuum is the loud part. And I was just kind of running it every few minutes to kind of suck off most of the dust. And here's our result. Here, tell you what, let's do this. Here's our result. I'll give you some light. So not bad, pretty good. Really great finish on the inside. The step over is imperceptible, so I might increase that step over on the next pass. You can see our magnet is a nice press fit. The hinge is just slightly loose. I mean, it fits in there nice, and I think the glue will hold it, but I'm going to shrink that hole down 1/10 of a millimeter or so and get a little bit better fit there. On the other side, tomorrow I'll cut this out at the Makerspace. I might leave a little bit more axial stock to leave. I can see just there, you barely see it there, just some little ledging on the edge there. So those ledges, I think I can, if I change my, let me go back to Fusion 360. If I change in my adaptive clearing, in the passes, yeah, in the stock to leave here, the radial stock to leave, if I go up to like 0.75 with that, and I leave that at 0.5, so just leave an extra 1/4 of a millimeter radially for my cleanup pass, because I can see the steps from my adaptive clearing left over just on the sidewalls there. So other than that, great part. I'm gonna leave some links in the description down below. Some links down in the description down below to the Fusion file in case you want this Fusion file. yeah, maybe I'll just post the G-code there too, because if you've got a Carvera Air and you don't have Fusion, and you don't want to generate your toolpaths, but you want to make a cigar box, you can just run those G-codes. I'll leave notes about the bit that I chose for each of the passes, or for each of the operations, and you can be off to the races. Obviously, you need to make 2 of these. So here's side 1, and then the other side will hinge onto it, and then again you'll need to cut it out yourself. I'm just gonna hit it on a bandsaw, and then flush router it up. That's it. That's all I got for you this week. We will see you next week, Monday, when we do maybe more toolpaths. Also, leave a comment down below if you like this format where you see the machine running and it's a little bit less formal because there's not a bunch of students out in front of me. So, all right, see you next week.